Hello everyone, welcome to my channel. I'm Jordan and welcome to another Book of the Month reading vlog. This is a series I do on my channel where I keep up with the Book of the Month books that I get every month and read them as soon as I can. Book of the Month is a monthly book subscription box service. I actually have a whole video all about what Book of the Month is and whether I think it's worth it. If you are not familiar with the service and want to know more about it, definitely go watch that video. But I love doing this series on my channel because I love keeping myself accountable for the books that I pick and not letting myself get a big backlist of Book of the Month books, because if I'm picking them, I want to read them. I am feeling a little behind at the moment. Usually I am very good at keeping up with my Book of the Month books and reading them in the same month that I pick them. But life was really busy last month, personally and professionally. I had a lot of travel and things, so I didn't read the 3 books that I picked last month. And my next box has already arrived with 3 more books in it. So I need to get working on reading all of these books that I've picked out. So the 3 that I will be reading in this video, I talked about in my October TBR, but these are the 3 books I picked in September. The main pick that I chose is The Attic Child by Lola J. This is a historical fiction book, I believe told in 2 timelines about 2 different children who were both trapped in either the same attic or different attics, but their storylines interweave somehow. I am in love with this cover and I'm very intrigued by that synopsis, so I can't wait to get to this one. Then I went a little bit out of my comfort zone and chose a lighthearted contemporary book, possibly a romance, called The Most Likely Club by Alyssa Friedland. This is about a group of friends who I believe are going back to their school for their 10-year reunion, and they are all making like a pact to fulfill the superlatives that they were assigned in high school, like most likely to become a movie star, most likely to, etc. Again, the cover got me, I love it. The synopsis also sounds interesting to me, but it is a genre that I don't read as much of, so I'm hoping to still enjoy it. And then the 3rd book that I picked last month is not a new book, but a book that I've been meaning to read for a very long time, so I'm excited to get to it now. It's The Great Alone by Kristen Hanna. I've read 3 or 4 Kristen Hanna books at this point, I think. I've really enjoyed most of them, and this one I've heard nothing but great things about, so I knew I was going to be reading it as soon as I got my hands on it. Now I finally do, so I'm excited to read it. I believe this is a historical fiction about a person who lives in Alaska, I think. I'm not sure if it's a family or a single person, but The Great Alone makes me think maybe a single person trying to survive or something. I'm just going to go in it with high but open expectations and hope that I love it as much as I've heard other people also love it. So before I get reading, I did want to open my next Book of the Month box, just because I'm also excited about these books. I'm hoping maybe at the end of this month I can get that reading vlog started and get working on these books. But in case you're curious about what I chose in October, my main pick is probably not too much of a surprise. I chose The Family Game by Catherine Steadman. This is a thriller. I believe it has to do with a family inheritance and some kind of game to earn the inheritance. I've seen mixed reviews, but I have liked at least one Catherine Steadman book in the past, so I'm hoping I'm somewhat of an unpopular opinion and this really works for me. This is very short. It looks like 320 pages. It just feels really thin in my hands, so hopefully that means it's fast-paced and I fly through it and love it. Then I picked a book, kind of a cover by. The synopsis is intriguing, but it's a genre I don't really read a lot. And then, to be honest, I picked this book because it is a debut novel and I need to hit my Book of the Month reading challenge. They do like challenges within the app of reading a certain number of books and then reading a certain number of debut books and long books, and if you hit all of the challenges then you get an extra like perk or prize. And I need one more debut book, and none of the other books that I've picked and still have to read are debuts, so I may have picked this mostly to fulfill that, but I am still interested in it. It's called As Long as the Lemon Trees Grow, and isn't this cover really beautiful? I believe this is a young adult book, but it looks like it's going to be very hard-hitting because it is set in Syria and I believe it follows war times and characters having to make decisions like, do they stay at their home or do they flee their home country? And at the very bottom of the synopsis it says it's a love letter to Syria and its people, which is definitely not a setting or a culture that I have read a lot about, so I am super interested to read this. And I'm actually glad that that reading challenge within Book of the Month is making me pick up something that's a little bit out of my comfort zone and that I wouldn't necessarily have picked up all on my own. And then the last book that I picked in October is one that I have seen so many people read and love. It's Practical Magic by Alice Hoffman. And again, let's just talk about that cover. That is so beautiful. I don't know anything about this book. I think it might be paranormal and have to do with like witches, which I'm skeptical about, but so many people love this book that I want to know what they're talking about. And I think there have been movies adapted from this, and I think there are sequels or prequels and other books in the series. So I think this will be a fun one to throw in either at the very end of October, this could be a good Halloween read, or at the beginning of November. So hopefully that's an interesting little sneak peek into the next Book of the Month reading vlog that will be coming to you. But first we have to read these 3 books. So 2 of them I know for sure I can get on audio, so I think I'm going to get started with one of them. I think I'll go ahead and start with The Attic Child, just because this was my main pick and I know I can get it on Scribd. So I'm gonna go ahead and start listening to this. It is pretty early in the morning. If you're curious about my personal life, I just got back last night from a work trip to Europe. I was there for a little over a week and a half. And it was an amazing time, but it was a long trip and I'm very excited to be home with my family and my kids and just get back to like my normal routine. So that's what today is going to be, is mostly catching up on home life, laundry, unpacking. I do have some work to do, so I will log on for a couple meetings, but it's just gonna be relaxed getting back into my routine. So I will bring you along for some of the chores that I end up doing. I'm gonna start this on audio and I will let you know once I'm a little bit into it and have an update and can give you maybe a little bit better of a synopsis. Okay, it is the next day. I am a little over 100 pages into The Attic Child. So I figured it was time to tell you a little bit more about what this book is about. I still feel like I'm only grazing the surface with this book. Like, I feel like so much more is going to be revealed. So my description of what's going on might feel incomplete, but I think that's intentional. I'm not supposed to know a ton at this point. But basically we are following 2 different characters in 2 different timelines. The first is early 1900s. We follow a character named Dikembe. He is a boy who at the start of the story is living with his family. He lives in Africa, just living his normal daily life, when all of a sudden this group of white men comes and like kind of invades their village, and they make some kind of arrangement with Dikembe's family where the white men, or one white man in particular, takes Dikembe to live with him in England. And the whole arrangement is just very weird because the way it's told and set up is, it seems like the family kind of willingly gave him up. I don't know if they got paid or what exactly the arrangement is, but they all got to say goodbye to him, and Dikembe goes to live with this white man in England for what he assumes is a short temporary amount of time. So we're following him on that journey. When he gets to England, he gets to stay in this attic, which to him is actually like a ton of space. He isn't used to having that big of a room all to himself. So it's not like a trapped in the attic situation. That's just like where he gets to stay. And the white man gives him a new name. He starts calling him Celestine, and he starts giving him like etiquette training and education, and he's apparently forming him into becoming like a good English boy. Dikembe / Celestine is learning to speak English, and he's just living this weird life that we don't really understand. Like, what are the motives of this white guy? Why did he take this black boy from his family and his village in Africa? What's going on here? So that's the first timeline. And then the second timeline and character that we're following is a woman named Laura who lives in England in the late 1900s, and she has just received news that her mom has passed away, and her mom owned this house that Laura now has to visit and like pick up her belongings and like figure out what she wants to keep and sell, etc. So Laura, upon hearing this news, goes to the house, and the only thing she is interested in looking at is the attic. And she pulls a couple things out of the attic, and it's just very unclear what the significance of the attic is to her. She keeps hinting at like a dark past with the attic. I don't know if she at one point was kept in the attic. I'm not 100% sure if it's the same attic. I think the synopsis of this says, yeah, it says 2 children separated by decades, bound by a secret, find themselves locked away in the same attic years apart. So apparently it's the same house, same attic in England that Dikembe was kept in and that Laura has some kind of past. So I'm very intrigued to keep reading this book because I want to know the puzzle pieces. I want to know how they're connected and just what's going on. Today is Friday, so I should hopefully have some time this weekend to finish this book. I will go ahead and check in with you once I've finished it and give you my overall thoughts on the story, how it's come together, and how I enjoyed it. Okay, I have an update. I finished The Attic Child, and it took me several more days than I was planning, several more days than I expected, and unfortunately, I think that kind of reflects my feelings on the book, that I wasn't racing through it. On paper and in theory, I really enjoyed everything about this book. Like, I was intrigued about what happened to the characters. Dikembe's story specifically was the most interesting to me, and I really liked how everything came together. I really liked like the last 100 pages of this book were really interesting. It was kind of like an aftermath type storyline after we figured out how everything fit together, and it was kind of closing out everything. I really liked all of that, and yet anytime I wasn't actively reading this book, I wasn't feeling super eager to get back into it. And I think that a lot of people who try to read this book probably will have similar feelings, and if you're not someone who enjoys historical fiction and who knows to expect a slower pace and know that it likely will pay off at the end and you'll get the resolution you're looking for, someone who's not expecting or okay with that might not make it to the end of this book. And I usually am okay about getting through like slow middle periods in books. I don't know, this one though just was dragging for me. Even though I was interested, it just didn't hold my attention enough to make me like always want to be reading this book. And so as a result, it took me a long time to finish it, and I just have like mediocre feelings about it in the end. I'm gonna give it 3 stars, and I would recommend it to people who fully understand like the slow pace, the slow burn. The ultimate payoff at the end will be worth it in my opinion, but it's a pretty slow story to get through. So with that, I definitely wanted to move into something fast, fun, and light for my next read, so I picked up The Most Likely Club, and that is definitely fulfilling that. I am about 90 pages in so far. It's reading way quicker than The Attic Child. This one is following, I think, 4 different perspectives. We've got Melissa, Tara, Priya. Okay, that might be it. I think just 3 perspectives. I think they have a 4th friend named Suki. I don't know if we're going to get her perspective at all either, but these girls are friends in high school. They all had major aspirations, you know, passions and things they wanted to do with their lives, and these were kind of reflected in their superlatives they were assigned in high school. So like someone got most likely to work at a Michelin star restaurant, one got most likely to be president or something. You know what, let me just look them up. One got most likely to cure cancer, most likely to win the White House, most likely to join the Forbes 400, and most likely to open a Michelin-starred restaurant. So 4 friends, 4 lofty superlatives they were assigned in high school, big goals, and now we're following them 25 years later as their 25-year reunion is coming up. And most of them are not quite where they expected to be at this point in their lives. We have not reached the reunion yet, so I think at that point is when they're going to meet and they're going to have a conversation of like, we need to meet the superlatives that we were assigned in high school, and they're going to set about changing their lives. Right now, again, we're just getting the perspectives and kind of backstories of each of the characters and finding out where are they at in their lives now. I wouldn't exactly call it funny so far. There have been a number of kind of pop culture references, which are interesting. I always think that's an interesting choice to make in a book to really date it, in this case in 2022. But we will see how it continues. I'm excited for the women to get together in person and maybe have some banter and some fun times together in person rather than all separately in their lives. But I'm just gonna keep reading this today. Hopefully I can really speed through this one, and I will let you know how the story progresses, how I'm enjoying it, and hopefully it ends up being a really fun kind of palate cleanser of a book, everything I'm looking for in this moment. But so far in general, so far so good. Alrighty, I have an update. I have finished The Most Likely Club, and I was disappointed by this book. At the beginning, I was really intrigued. I wanted it to go places, but the further it went on, it just kept dropping and dropping. I don't feel like this book had the discussions that it wanted to have. I thought following, women in their 40s, it was going to have some profound messages around like the glass ceiling in the workplace, the myth of having it all, or women feeling like they have to juggle everything and make it look easy, and the idea that society pushes out the message that women's lives go downhill after the age of 40, like they're not valuable anymore. I feel like this book touched the very surface of all of those things, and I wanted so much more. I wanted more discussion. I wanted more impact. Like I wanted to care about these characters going through those types of issues and overcoming them in a really profound way, but it just stayed so surface level, and the issues that these women ended up facing were just so like gossip driven, and it was way more about their appearance to everyone else, like at their high school reunion and in their lives in general, and not about really getting fulfillment themselves. At least that's what I got out of it. I don't know if my expectations were off or if I was missing the actual messages this book was trying to send. I think maybe this book was a little too short at just over 300 pages. Maybe it needed another 100 pages to be able to really dive into those issues, but this was just not it. I would not recommend it. I'm giving it 2 stars, and I'm on the hunt for a book that does this better, does those discussions better, and that I can love and recommend to other people who are looking for books with that type of messaging. So that is a bummer, but we are just going to move right along into my third and final book for this video. I have just started The Great Alone by Kristen Hanna. This is not a new book. I know a lot of people have heard of this. I definitely had heard of it, but I didn't know the specific plot of what this book was about. So in case that's also you, this book is about this family that consists of a mother, a father, and a daughter named Lenny. She's about 13 years old. And I forget where they start in this book. When we first meet them, they are somewhere in the continental United States. The father is a war veteran, and he was actually a prisoner of war. He has since come home, but he went through really traumatic experiences, and as a result has brought home a lot of post-traumatic stress disorder, depression, anger. He's having trouble holding on to employment, and so their family is struggling a little bit. And then at the start of this book, the father gets a letter from the father of someone he was at war with who died in combat. The father has written him and said, "Hey, my son told me all about you. I know you meant a lot to him and he meant a lot to you. He has this property up in Alaska that I want to offer to you and your family to come and live here. You can live off the land." And yeah, so the father is like, yes, we have to do this. This is our chance to, get our feet back under us. I know this is going to solve all my problems as a person, moving to Alaska. And so the 3 of them pick up everything and move to Alaska. And this is set in 1974, so it's not all that historical, which is very interesting. But when they move to Alaska, it is like they're stepping back even more in time, because they really are living off the land. They have an outhouse that they use the bathroom in. They have to grow their own food and stock up everything for winter. That's been a big focus of this, is that the summer is spent working really, really hard to stock up food to survive in the winter and learning other survival skills like hunting and defending yourself. And so Lenny, the teenager, is just really going through a lot, right, with her parents and their relationship, and then this change in culture and how they're living. And I'm very interested to see how the story progresses. It's definitely reminding me a little bit of The Four Winds, which was actually written after this book by Kristen Hanna, but that book was also like a survival story and trying to kind of make it out of nothing. That follows a mother and daughter, and this mother and daughter also seem very close, so I'm getting similar vibes. And then it's also reminding me of Educated by Tara Westover, which is about a family that lives in Idaho, I think, and are also very live off the land, sustain themselves, and the parents love their children, but do things that unintentionally harm their children. And I'm getting a lot of that in here too. Like, this family seems to love each other, but they have dysfunctional relationships as well. And I'm worried for what that's gonna do for Lenny and how this is all gonna work out. So definitely intrigued. I will let you know when I'm further in or have finished it. And maybe if you have been putting off this book like I was, or wasn't sure what it was about, or if you'd like it, I can give you a little bit more information to decide if you should pick it up as well. Okay, final update time. I finished The Great Alone and I really liked it. I can totally see why people love this book and why it's a lot of people's favorite Kristen Hanna book. I do think if I had read this before The Nightingale and The Four Winds that it probably would have been 5 stars. I just very easily compared it to those two books, which were 5 stars for me from Kristen Hanna, and this one I didn't like quite as much as those two, so that's why this is going to land at a 4 star. But again, it's really, really good. Kristen Hanna just does such a great job of making you care about her characters and the situation they're in, and you're rooting for them. I will keep with my statement that this reminds me a lot of The Four Winds because of the mother-daughter bond and relationship, as well as kind of the survival aspects. Educated, again, because of the dysfunctional family aspect, along with like homesteading and living off of your own land. And then also it reminded me of Where the Crawdads Sing, because of how much this book did pay tribute to Alaska, and our main character Lenny became very attached to the landscape, and she had like her own relationship with Alaska as a place, very similar to the main character in Crawdads and how she forms a very close relationship with her marsh land. So if you liked any or all of those 3 books, I think you would like this one, and it's definitely worth a read. So I'm glad that we ended this video on a high note. Just to recap really quickly, The Attic Child historical fiction, I gave it 3 stars. The Most Likely Club was a contemporary book that I gave 2 stars. And then The Great Alone, another historical fiction that I gave 4 stars. So 2, 3, and 4 stars, not what I was hoping for. I'm always hoping for 3, 5 stars, but I am satisfied with the books I read. I will continue going outside of my comfort zone. I'm always hoping that Book of the Month will introduce me to a hidden gem that nobody else is reading and talking about, that I stumble upon and give 5 stars. Unfortunately, it just didn't happen in this video. But please let me know if you have read any of these books and what your thoughts were on them, or if you're planning on picking any of them up in the future. And then also let me know, I'm curious, if you are a Book of the Month member, what's the best book that you have gotten through Book of the Month and absolutely loved that you may not have picked up otherwise? I have a couple that I think fall into that category, but I want more. So I will continue on my Book of the Month quest to find those. But other than that, I don't think I have anything else. So thank you so much for watching this video, and I will see you in my next one.